Hey everyone, I want to show a couple of modern tools here in 2024 to make what's known as an ERD, an entity relationship diagram. Okay, when you're working in software, web applications, you've got databases and database tables, and you want to show those relationships between those tables in a diagram to help communicate. What are the fields that you're collecting in your software? What data are you working with? Really, the important data that you're storing in a database. Okay, and the two modern tools that we're going to work with are a Visual Studio Code, VS Code extension called draw.io. Okay, and this is going to be the tool that actually generates our diagram that we're going to build. And of course, a little AI tool. If you haven't heard of ChatGPT, by now you should have. And so we're in the early phases in a class right now that I'm teaching, and this is a .NET Core MVC class, and all my classes, they want to build final projects that are custom projects, and I'm asking my class to build an ERD to kind of brainstorm the data that their web application will be creating. So everyone has their own projects, and so to kind of get started, of course, let's go ahead and go to chatgpt.com. Okay, and make an account and log into your account. Okay, very simply, that way you can use ChatGPT for free. And this tool is going to help us create our relationships and brainstorm our entities. So of course, with ChatGPT, what you need to do is prompt it properly for it to give you the proper help. Now, if you're in my class, I would encourage you to mimic my prompt. Of course, you can model this or change this prompt however you like. Now, this is a brainstorm. This ERD can change, okay? This is just the initial brainstorming session. And you can make changes as you see fit. That's how I like to use ChatGPT, is to kind of lay a template baseline down for me and really help get me started, and then you need to make the appropriate changes. Okay, so here's my prompt that I want to kind of hone in on. And so, to kind of read this out loud, can you help me brainstorm my ERD for my .NET Core MVC app? I want to build an e-commerce site for a Mexican restaurant. So that's kind of what I'm looking to build. I plan on using ASP.NET Identity for the users table. Now, if you're in my class, please include that sentence, okay, because we will be using ASP.NET Identity for our users. I'd like to demonstrate my knowledge of a many-to-many and one-to-many. These are relationships, so please include those relationships in my model. Again, you can modify this prompt. This is what I used. Now, the output of that, as you can kind of see here in the bulleted list, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tables. Okay, so my database has 7 tables. These 7 tables are the user, product, category, order item, ingredient, and product ingredient. Those are my 7 tables. And what's beautiful about this is it shows you a one-to-many. Here's many examples of one-to-many. User has many orders. A category has many products. An order has many order items. And a product has many order items. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 one-to-manys. And we have one many-to-many. A product can have many ingredients, and an ingredient can have many products. Okay, so this is several examples of one-to-many and one example of many-to-many. And it continues. Here's a structured view of the entities and their relationships. So again, here's the table, the primary key on that table, and the fields of that table. Product, primary key, the fields, and the foreign key. Again, a product has a category ID. One product has a category ID. So go back up to here. Excuse me. I think it's a many to one. So again, a product has a single category. Category then just has a primary key going down to order. Order has a user ID. A single user can have many orders though. And again, it's just showing the primary keys and the foreign keys. Okay, so this is the brainstorm. Now, at this point, you know, if I kind of go back up to here, you know, the actual attributes, very customizable. Obviously, these are the suggested attributes of our users: the username, an email, a password hash. These are customizable by you. This is just a brainstorm. Okay, so what is the short version of this? ChatGPT is an amazing tool to help us build ERDs. I will tell you, in my background, you know, rewinding 15 years ago, I took courses, college courses, to learn how to model databases and database tables. And so there's a lot of theory behind these suggestions. You know, again, you can study whole books on this, but ChatGPT does a really great job of making really clean, usable, you know, following all the best practices of database design. Okay, many best practices, I should say. Okay, so now that we have these 7 tables and all of these relationships, how they're linking together, in other words, let's start to make a diagram out of this, because is, you know, this doesn't really show as cleanly as a diagram shows. Again, you can see a user has many orders, a category has many products, a product has many order items, an order has many order items, and a product has many ingredients. Okay, this table right here, the product ingredient table, you could see is a join table. Okay, remember, when you have a many-to-many relationship, that's not considered best practice, and so you break that down to be a one-to-many between the join tables and the 2 other tables, the product table and the ingredient table. Okay, so let's get this into let's get this now into the other tool, which is Draw.io. So for this, remember, there's 2 different Visual Studios. There's Visual Studio Community, as represented. You can see my mouse in the purple icon, and then there's Visual Studio Code. Okay, Draw.io is a extension in VS Code, and so back in the HTML class, you were using VS Code. I believe Draw.io is also an extension on Chrome, so you could download the Chrome extension. I haven't done that. I'm just using VS Code. So you may need to download VS Code if you want to use it like I'm using it. Otherwise, if you use Chrome, just search for it in your Chrome extensions and you should be able to get it. Okay, so download VS Code if you don't have it. Open up VS Code if you haven't opened it up in a while. And on the left-hand panel, you have your extensions. Go ahead and search for Draw.io, install the extension, and you'll be caught up to where I am. Now, once you have Draw.io installed, okay, you need to work in a certain, you need to open up a folder to put your image in. So I'm going to open up, and I have a folder on my desktop that's in all coursework, final project, and I made a subfolder here called UML. Okay, so I'm just going to select this UML folder. If you're in my class, I would encourage you to put your diagram in a UML folder, just like I'm doing here. Okay, and so now I'm inside this UML folder, inside of VS Code, but there's nothing in it. It's an empty folder. Okay, to get started, I'm going to say diagram.drawIO. You have to have this extension of drawIO. And then you could see here, it'll open up this GUI for you to generate your diagram. Okay, so here is our drawIO template. Okay, and what I had to do is click on this more shapes and scroll down to under software and check this entity relation box and click apply. And that enables me to have all of these relations. Let me collapse this, give you a little more real estate here. All of these tables and all of these what are lines that represent what's called cardinality. Okay, cardinality are your relationships, such as one to many or many. So here's a one to many optional. Here's a one to many that's considered mandatory. Here's many to many mandatory. Okay, and the like. All of ours are going to be, well, I'm not going to say all, but many of them are going to be mandatory relationships. Okay, so let's start. What we're going to do is we're going to convert this brainstorm of these 7 tables, and we're going to get it into a diagram, into an ERD diagram. Again, this is just a very normal part. I would say more large businesses want to have diagrams, ERD diagrams. Smaller businesses may or may not decide to use this tool as a mode of communication. Okay, is really what an ERD does, is it helps you communicate the data and the relationships in your database. And so larger software projects tend to have ERDs, where smaller ones or smaller companies may not. And so let's just start, and you got to start somewhere. So I like a user can have many orders. Okay, so here's a one to many user and order. So we'll start with user, and then down here's order. Of course, an order has a user ID, and let's model that. So a user is our first table. So let's drag this over. And I'm going to draw, let's see, since user, now my user, let's see if I can alt tab back and forth. Okay, user ID is my primary key, user ID, and the convention is Pascal casing, capital U, capital I. And these are the fields. So row 1 is username, email, and password hash. Okay, and these, again, this can be customized. The point of this is to begin brainstorming what are the fields that we actually want to work with. And it's nice, you can kind of collapse that. In order to create a product, we need a category. Let's go ahead and do order. Order has an order ID. So again, I'm going to drag this table over. And so this is going to be my order table. Ooh. With my order ID. We're going to have a user ID, order date, now this, my user ID, I'll mark this as a foreign key. Okay, now just a couple of notes here. Obviously, this primary key from the user table is the foreign key in the order table. You don't have to name the rows the same thing. Like this could just, they could have different identifiers, but I'm going to just recommend, since you're calling it user ID over here, it makes sense to call it user ID over there. You could call it something different and you know, get that to work. However, I'm going to recommend they stay the same. So now we have a mandatory user. So one user is mandatory to have an order. You can't have an optional, you know, an optional user. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say one to many, one mandatory to many optional. Now an order does not have, a user does not have to make an order. You can just have a user without an order. So again, I dragged, which one did I drag? One mandatory, one and only one, so that's what those two lines mean on the left, can have many, which the circle represents the optional. So you can, one user can have many orders, and you can begin to see how this is going to come together. Let's continue on. Let's make sure to connect user ID to the foreign key. And so it's kind of nice there. You can drag them and connect the rows as you see there, and all the like. Now, if you want more, whoops, my hotkeys are failing me. There you go. You could just click duplicate and it will extend it. So instead of manually changing the box size, let's just click a row and let's click duplicate, and there you go. That'll increase everything for you. Control Z to undo that. Okay, so there's our first two tables. Where do we want to go from there? So it's the relationships they're kind of showing them both ways. One to many, also with order item. So many to one with user, one to many with order. So it's kind of showing in this going both ways. One to many with order, and from the order's point of view, it's a many to one with user. And so we're handling both of those with that. But you can kind of see order item. So let's go ahead and create an order item. Well, order item, before we create order item, we have an order ID. We need a product ID. So let's go ahead and create product. Product would be next. Let's see if I can tab over. Okay. Let's drag a product table. And product ID. Name, description, so on and so forth. Oh. Copy name. There we go. Description. Again, these fields are completely customizable, whatever you like to store. This is a brainstorm, duplicate. Stock and category ID. Now I don't have the category, don't duplicate the table, duplicate the row. And category ID, of course, will be a foreign key. Okay, I'd like to zoom out a little bit here. View, just holding control. There we go. And so now we have product. And let's just spin up category, because but I think as you're watching this, you're getting the general idea of how these two tools can be used together fairly quickly to create some clean UML diagrams. So if I say a category has one-to-many with product, one category can have many products. So a product must have a category. So again, this is a one-to-many mandatory. One mandatory to many optional. So do categories have to have products? And some of this is very software dependent. Does a category have to have a product? That's maybe yes, maybe no. But in this case, I'm going to say a category. You could just have a category that does not have a product yet. So we have one category with many products. So we got category one to many, and then we got many to one with category. Again, many to one with category, so we took care of that. And product, we're getting there to order item. Okay, so I think the next thing to make maybe is our order item. And I think, drag this around a little bit. Order item. Order item ID, primary key. Order ID is a foreign key. Product ID is also a foreign key. Quantity price, quantity, duplicate, price. Okay, so now an order can have many order items. And so let's kind of go down. An order can have many order items. One order can have many order items. So one order, mandatory. So if we're going to have an order, we're going to have some mandatory order items. You can't have an order without items. So I'm going to do one to many mandatory on both sides. One mandatory, not to many optional. I need a one to many. There we go, one to many, mandatory on both sides. Okay, so one order can have many order items. Okay, so now I want to link up this product to order item. So think about this, product to order item. One product can have many order items. So one mandatory so product has many order items. So I think it's mandatory on both sides. So when in doubt, just make them both mandatory is what I'm going to do. So we got a one mandatory to many mandatory. So product ID. All right, it's coming together now. We got 5 of the tables. What we have left is the many to many. We need ingredient and product ingredients. So let's go ahead and make ingredient. So if I think ingredient ID, name, description, I'm not sure where that word table is hanging out in the middle there. What do I do for that? Not sure. Now it does seem like, oh, doesn't matter. So here's ingredient, many to many with product. So what I'll do anytime you have a many to many, is you break the many to many down, and you make a join table, goes by different names. Name and description, that's just an extra. Let me delete that. Delete. Delete. Okay. This one's being weird. I'm gonna redo my ingredient table. It's just giving me a hard time. Ingredient ID. It's having too many little, something must have been different about that one. Moving fast, you make little description, delete. All of a sudden, when I'm clicking delete, it's not deleting, but that's okay. I'm not gonna worry about it at the moment. So let's make the join table, which is product ingredient. Now this one has this situation where we've got, notice I added a different table. So this is both the primary key and the foreign key together. I don't need these lower rows, so I can delete row 3 and row 4. And this has product ID. And ingredient ID. This is called product ingredient. And now that we have this, this is, database design where, did not mean to create that arrow. Anytime there's a many to many, you break that many to many down and create 2 one to manys. And so here we're going to say one product ID one mandatory to many mandatory. So here the one belongs to product ID. The many belongs to product ID here. It'd be nice if that would flip around. And same thing, one to many ingredient. There we go. Sometimes you got to drag these around to get them to display nice and pretty. It can be hard to get them to display exactly how I want. Maybe again, getting the lines to look nice and clean is what I'm going for here. But maybe product ingredient needs to go above. So getting this exactly right. But nonetheless, this is the exercise of generating a UML diagram. Okay, and the last part is we need to actually get this into a JPEG. So I'm going to click on Save, and from here we're going to click on Export and into an PNG. We're going to put it into a PNG file, and it's called diagram.png. Go ahead and click on Save. And now when you go into that folder on my desktop, and here's my UML folder on my desktop, I actually just get a very normal looking PNG. Now the thing with the PNGs is it's got a transparent background. So you're getting that behavior. You might export it as a different file type to not get that transparent background. So let's do this again. File, export. Let's do it as an SVG. Let's just see how that looks. That looks better. The SVG actually opens up in the browser. Okay, and again, you can drag and drop these things around so the lines look a little cleaner, but nonetheless, that is UML diagramming using these two tools. Hopefully you guys can brainstorm with these tools and get a decent looking UML diagram.